Have you ever stopped to wonder why, despite living in the most prosperous era in human history, we wake up in the morning with that persistent feeling that something is missing? Why, even when we achieve everything we thought would make us happy, the full shopping cart, the house, the stable relationship, the vacation photos posted on Instagram with dozens of likes, that inexplicable emptiness in our chest still remains? You are not imagining things. You are not being dramatic. And you are definitely not alone in this bewildering experience. What you are feeling is the result of one of the greatest collective illusions our species has ever created. A deception so convincing that even the brightest thinkers of our time fall into its trap daily. This is not a personal crisis you need to solve alone with more self-help or therapy. Although these things may help, it is a systemic crisis affecting billions of people simultaneously, and understanding its roots may be the first step for you to find not just relief, but a completely new way of experiencing life. The history of human happiness is quite different from what self-help books and motivational gurus tell us. For most of our existence as a species, our hunter-gatherer ancestors did not worry about happiness as a goal to be achieved. They simply existed, dealt with immediate survival challenges, shared resources, created deep social bonds, and found meaning in daily tasks necessary to keep the group alive. There was no constant pressure to optimize every moment for maximum personal satisfaction. There were no happiness metrics, mindfulness apps, or life coaches promising transformations in 30 days. Happiness, when it happened, was a natural byproduct of a life integrated with community and environment, not a product to be consumed or a state to be manufactured. Everything changed with the agricultural revolution about 10,000 years ago. For the first time in history, we began to believe we could control our destiny, manipulate nature to produce abundance, and by extension, create the conditions for lasting happiness. There was born the illusion that haunts us to this day, the idea that happiness is something we can plan, work to achieve, and finally conquer permanently. The first civilizations began developing complex systems of rewards and hierarchies, promising that those who worked harder, accumulated more resources, climbed the social ladder, would finally find the satisfaction they sought. It was the beginning of the trap that would capture all subsequent humanity. With the Industrial Revolution, this promise gained even more elaborate contours. Suddenly, it was not just about accumulating grain for winter or getting a piece of land. It was about producing goods on a massive scale, creating markets for these goods, and convincing people that happiness was directly related to the ability to consume increasingly more products. The capitalist system, in its perverse genius, discovered how to transform our natural search for well-being into a perpetual engine of economic growth. Each generation was conditioned to believe it would be happier than the previous one, as long as it managed to buy more things, have more experiences, achieve more milestones of material success. But here is the paradox that defines our era. We have never had so much access to comfort, entertainment, food, security, and opportunities. And at the same time, we have never recorded such high levels of depression, anxiety, loneliness, and existential despair. The statistics are staggering. In the richest countries in the world, where theoretically we would have all the conditions to maximize human happiness, we find the highest suicide rates among young people, the highest rates of antidepressant use, and an epidemic of mental disorders that grows exponentially each decade. Something is fundamentally wrong with our happiness equation. Modern neuroscience offers us crucial clues to understanding this apparent contradiction. Our brain was shaped by millions of years of evolution to keep us alive in hostile environments, not to keep us happy in abundant environments. The reward system that motivated us to seek food when we were hungry, shelter when we were vulnerable, companionship when we were isolated, continues operating with the same intensity, but now in a completely different context. We are using evolutionary survival software in modern abundance hardware, and the result is constant confusion between real needs and manufactured desires. What happens in your brain when you buy something you have wanted for weeks? There is a small explosion of dopamine neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and motivation. For a few minutes, maybe a few hours, you experience genuine satisfaction. But then something interesting happens. Your brain quickly adapts to this new level of stimulation and returns to the previous state, leaving you with the need to seek the next purchase, the next experience, the next achievement that can recreate that sensation. It is an infinite cycle that psychologists call the hedonic treadmill, where we run faster and faster just to remain in the same emotional place. Digital technology has amplified this problem in ways we are only beginning to understand. Social media, in particular, has created a global laboratory of social comparison where we are constantly exposed to the edited and curated versions of other people's lives. Our primitive brain cannot distinguish between a photo posted on Instagram and the reality of the life of whoever posted it. We see performative happiness in all directions and automatically assume that everyone around us is living more satisfying, more adventurous, more meaningful lives than ours. It is a cruel cognitive illusion that leaves us perpetually dissatisfied with our own experience. The algorithms that govern these platforms were specifically designed to maximize our engagement time, not our well-being. They learn to identify exactly what types of content keep us scrolling, what emotional triggers make us return obsessively to check notifications, what social comparisons leave us simultaneously addicted and miserable. We are literally being programmed to consume happiness as a digital product in small doses that never really satisfy, but keep us coming back for more. Meanwhile, global corporations have perfected the art of selling happiness as a commodity. Modern marketing does not just sell products, it sells identities, lifestyles, promises of personal transformation. Each advertisement is a small story about how your life could be better if you bought this product, adopted this brand, followed this influencer. We are bombarded daily with thousands of subtle messages that our current happiness is inadequate and that the solution is always one purchase away. The personal development industry, ironically, perpetuates many of these same illusions under a different guise. Self-help books promise simple formulas for lasting happiness, as if decades of cultural conditioning could be reversed with 10 easy steps. Life coaches sell the idea that you can hack your own brain chemistry through practices of mindfulness, gratitude, and visualization, completely ignoring the systemic factors that shape our emotional experience. Even genuinely beneficial movements like meditation and therapy can become just more items on the endless list of things we need to do to finally manage to be happy. I want to pause for a moment to ask, do you also feel this constant pressure to optimize your own happiness? This feeling that you should be doing more, being more grateful, practicing more mindfulness, having more hobbies, more social connections, more meaningful experiences. I know it can be exhausting to carry this weight that your happiness is your personal responsibility, especially when the world around you seems to conspire to make this task impossible. But you are not failing at being happy. You are responding normally to a system that was designed to keep you dissatisfied. If this feeling resonates with you, share your experience in the comments. It can be as simple as writing, "I feel this pressure to be happier when." Your comment may be exactly what another person needs to read today to realize they are not alone in this apparently personal but actually collective struggle. What makes this situation even more complex is that we live in an era of extreme individualism, where each person is taught to believe they are completely responsible for their own happiness. If you're not happy, you're obviously not trying hard enough. You are not being grateful enough. You are not making the right choices. You are not following the right diet, the right exercise regimen, the right morning routine, the right spiritual practice. The very structure of our contemporary society isolates us in small family units or solitary lives, removing the community support networks that sustained our ancestors for thousands of generations, and then tells us we should be able to find complete satisfaction within our own limited resources. Modern loneliness is not just about not having people around. It is about not having people who really know you deeply, who share your daily struggles, who offer unconditional support through the inevitable ups and downs of human life. We have replaced deep community bonds with superficial connections and transactional relationships. Our friendships often become series of scheduled meetings where we share only the polished versions of ourselves, keeping our real vulnerabilities carefully hidden. The result is that even when we are surrounded by people, we remain fundamentally alone in our search for meaning and connection. Modern work contributes significantly to this happiness crisis. Most people spend most of their waking hours in activities they feel as fundamentally disconnected from any greater purpose. We work in corporations that prioritize profit over human well-being, execute tasks that could easily be automated, participate in meetings that could be emails, create products we know contribute to environmental or social problems. There is a deep alienation between what we do during our most productive hours and what really matters to us as human beings. Simultaneously, the accelerated pace of modern life leaves us in a constant state of rush and artificial urgency. We are conditioned to believe that productivity is virtue, that being busy is synonymous with living a full life, that any moment of pause or contemplation is wasted time. We lose the ability to simply exist without constantly doing, producing, consuming, or preparing for the next activity on the endless task list. Consumer society has also taught us to confuse pleasure with happiness. And this confusion is at the center of much of our current suffering. Pleasure is a temporary sensation that comes from specific external stimuli. Eating something delicious, having sex, buying something new, receiving social validation. Genuine happiness, on the other hand, is a deeper state of contentment and meaning that emerges from internal factors. Sense of purpose, authentic connections, self-acceptance, alignment between values and actions. Our culture constantly bombards us with opportunities for immediate pleasure while systematically undermining the conditions necessary for lasting happiness. Modern advertising is particularly insidious in how it exploits our psychological vulnerabilities. Marketing professionals have studied decades of psychological research to learn exactly how to activate our fears of inadequacy, our desires for belonging, our anxiety about the future. Each commercial is a small assault on our self-esteem, designed to make us feel that our current life is somehow deficient and that the solution is in buying this product, adopting this brand, aspiring to this lifestyle. Social media has turned this into a 24-hour-a-day experience. Now, we do not need to wait for television commercials to be bombarded with images of how our life could be better. We carry a device in our pocket that offers us constant social comparison, intermittent validation through likes and comments, and infinite access to content designed to keep us engaged, but not necessarily satisfied. It is like having a casino in your pocket, programmed to give us small rewards at random intervals to maintain the addiction, but never the jackpot that would actually solve our search for satisfaction. The educational system also contributes to this problem by training generations of children to believe that happiness comes from external achievement. From very young, we learn to associate our self-esteem with grades, rankings, approval from authorities, competition with peers. We develop a mentality where our value as a person depends on our ability to surpass others, to accumulate credentials, to follow a predefined path of success that often has no relation to our genuine interests or our unique constitution as individuals. When we finally reach adult life, we discover that the implicit promises of this system do not materialize. Getting the diploma did not bring us automatic happiness. Getting the dream job did not eliminate our existential anxiety. Buying the house, getting married, having children, accumulating savings, all these achievements that should be milestones of satisfaction reveal themselves to be just new starting points for new concerns, new comparisons, new pressures to reach the next level of success. Modern work culture intensifies this dynamic by promising that if we work hard enough, we will be rewarded with free time to finally enjoy life. But this free time never really arrives, or when it does, we discover we have lost the ability to genuinely relax, to be present, to find satisfaction in activities that do not produce measurable results. Even our vacations become projects to be optimized, experiences to be documented for social validation, investments in memories that should sustain us until we can take the next vacation. Technology promised to free us from many of the most tedious aspects of human life, giving us more time to pursue activities that really matter. Instead, it created new forms of digital slavery where we are constantly available for work, constantly exposed to information that provokes anxiety, constantly distracted from any possibility of deep contemplation or genuine connection with ourselves and others. Artificial intelligence and automation are now threatening to make many forms of human work obsolete, forcing us to confront fundamental questions about what gives meaning to life when basic survival no longer requires conscious effort from most people. If robots can do our jobs, if algorithms can make many of our decisions, if technology can satisfy many of our basic needs, what is left for humans to do that is genuinely satisfying? But there is hope in this crisis, because when we understand the systematic roots of our collective suffering, we can begin to imagine real alternatives. The first step is recognizing that seeking happiness as a goal in itself is part of the problem. Genuine happiness is always a byproduct of something deeper. Living according to our most authentic values, contributing to something greater than ourselves, developing real connections with other people, accepting the imperfect and transitory nature of human experience. We need to relearn to value enough instead of always more. This does not mean conforming to mediocrity or stopping growing as a person. It means developing the ability to find genuine satisfaction in what we already have, in the people who are already in our lives, in the capacities we already possess. It means constantly questioning whether our desires come from authentic needs or from external manipulation. It means creating spaces in our lives for silence, contemplation, and connection with deeper aspects of our humanity. The true happiness revolution will not come from new personal optimization techniques or innovative wellness products. It will come from fundamental changes in how we organize our society, how we structure work, how we create communities, how we educate children, how we define success and human value. We need economic systems that prioritize human well-being over infinite growth. We need technologies designed to support human flourishing instead of maximizing engagement. We need cultures that celebrate contemplation, cooperation, and contentment instead of competition, consumption, and constant accumulation. This requires that we begin making different choices in our own lives, even within the constraints of current systems. We can deliberately choose to reduce our exposure to advertising and social media. We can prioritize deep relationships over superficial networking. We can seek work that aligns with our values, even if this means sacrificing some financial security or social status. We can practice gratitude not as an optimization technique, but as a way to really notice and appreciate what is already present in our lives. We can also choose to redefine success in terms that make sense for our unique constitution as individuals. Instead of pursuing universal achievement milestones, we can develop personal metrics of well-being. How many meaningful conversations did I have this week? How many moments of genuine presence did I experience? What contributions did I make to the well-being of other people? How did I grow in wisdom, compassion, or authenticity? Spiritual practice, whether religious or secular, can offer valuable tools for this journey, but only if approached with genuine intentions instead of as another self-optimization project. Meditation, prayer, nature, contemplation, study of wisdom, texts, all these practices can help us develop a broader perspective on our place in the cosmos and find peace amid the inevitable turbulence of human life. The relationship with time also needs to be completely reimagined. Instead of living constantly focused on the future, always pursuing the next goal that supposedly will bring us satisfaction, we can learn to inhabit the present more fully. This is not about superficial mindfulness or living each day as if it were the last. It is about developing the ability to find richness and meaning in the current moment, even when that moment includes challenges, boredom, or emotional pain. Death, paradoxically, can be our greatest teacher about happiness. When we really internalize the reality of our mortality, many of the concerns that dominate our lives reveal themselves as trivial. The urgency to accumulate more, to impress more people, to achieve more status, to have more experiences, all of this loses much of its force when we honestly confront the brevity and fragility of human existence. This does not make us morbid or depressed. It makes us more present, more grateful, more focused on what really matters. Community emerges as an absolutely crucial factor for any sustainable happiness. Humans evolved as social beings, dependent on cooperative groups for survival and meaning. The attempt to find satisfaction through purely individual efforts is doomed to failure because it ignores our fundamental need for belonging, contribution, and mutual support. We need to consciously invest in creating and maintaining real communities where people know each other deeply, share resources, celebrate successes together, and offer support during difficulties. This can start small. Regular dinner with neighbors, groups of genuine interest, volunteering for causes that matter to you, participation in community traditions or creating new traditions. The important thing is to seek connections where you can be known and valued for who you really are, not for your productivity, appearance, or achievements. The relationship with money also needs to be fundamentally re-examined. While extreme poverty certainly causes unnecessary suffering, research consistently shows that income increases beyond what is necessary to satisfy basic needs has minimal impact on life satisfaction. However, our culture teaches us to believe that more money always equals more happiness, leading us to sacrifice time, health, relationships, and personal values in pursuit of financial security that never feels sufficient. Learning to live elegantly within our means, focusing on experiences instead of possessions, valuing free time over additional income, all these are choices that can significantly increase our life satisfaction while reducing the constant pressure to always earn more, spend more, have more. Work can become a source of meaning instead of just survival when we manage to align our professional activities with our values and unique capacities. This does not always mean completely changing careers. It can mean finding aspects of your current work that connect with greater purposes, seeking ways to serve others through your professional skills, or using your income to support causes that matter to you. For those with sufficient financial privilege to make choices, it can mean deliberately choosing less lucrative but more values-aligned work. For those without this privilege, it can mean finding purpose and community outside work, using employment as a means to sustain activities that really matter to you. Creativity emerges as another essential component of a satisfying life. Humans have a deep need to create, to express their unique perspective, to contribute something new to the world. This does not require being a professional artist or producing masterpieces. It can be gardening, cooking, carpentry, writing, music, any activity where you are using your capacities to bring something into existence that did not exist before. Education also needs to be reimagined, focusing on developing wisdom, character, and ability to think critically about fundamental questions of life instead of just transmitting information or training skills for the job market. Children need to learn about relationships, about how to deal with difficult emotions, about how to find meaning, about how to live in harmony with others and with nature. We also need new rituals and traditions that mark important transitions in life, that celebrate milestones of personal growth, that offer structure and meaning for the inevitable passages we all face. Entrance into adult life, formation of partnerships, birth of children, facing loss, aging, preparation for death. Technology used consciously can support these goals instead of undermining them. We can choose to use digital devices to maintain meaningful connections with people who matter to us, to learn about subjects that genuinely interest us, to create and share art, to organize community actions. The key is to use technology intentionally instead of being used by it, maintaining control over when and how we engage with digital platforms instead of allowing algorithms to dictate our attention and energy. Nature offers an infinite source of perspective and restoration that our urban culture often disconnects us from. Regular time outdoors, observation of changing seasons, contemplation of complex ecological systems. All of this can remind us of our place in larger contexts and offer us the peace that comes from recognizing patterns and rhythms larger than our immediate personal concerns. Physical exercise is important not only for health, but for mental and emotional well-being. Our bodies evolved for regular movement, and modern sedentary life contributes significantly to depression, anxiety, and general sense of discontent. But exercise does not need to be optimized or competitive. It can be simply a daily walk, dancing in your living room, swimming in the ocean, any activity that connects you with the natural joy of bodily movement. Eating can also become a contemplative practice instead of just fuel or pleasure. Cooking your own meals, eating with mindful attention, sharing food with others, all these practices can transform a biological necessity into a source of satisfaction and connection. Adequate sleep is fundamental for emotional well-being, but our culture of constant productivity often treats sleep as wasted time instead of essential investment in mental health. Creating healthy sleep rituals, prioritizing sufficient rest, respecting your body's natural rhythms, all of this contributes significantly to emotional stability and general satisfaction. As we age, we can learn to value wisdom over energy, depth over novelty, lasting relationships over broad networks. Each phase of life offers its own unique gifts and specific satisfactions, but only if we can resist cultural pressure to remain eternally young or constantly productive. Gratitude, when practiced genuinely instead of as an optimization technique, can transform our relationship with our current circumstances. This does not mean pretending everything is perfect or suppressing difficult emotions. It means developing the ability to notice and appreciate positive aspects of our lives that often go unnoticed because our attention is focused on what is missing or what could be better. Forgiveness, both of others and ourselves, releases emotional energy that often gets trapped in resentment, guilt, and self-reproach. This does not mean excusing harmful behavior or avoiding responsibility for our actions. It means choosing not to carry the weight of past hurts we cannot change, freeing mental and emotional space for fuller engagement with present possibilities. Acceptance of imperfection, both our own and the world around us, can paradoxically increase our satisfaction with life. The pursuit of perfection is an infinite source of frustration because perfection does not exist in the real world. When we can find beauty in imperfection, meaning in struggle, growth, in failure, we open possibilities for types of satisfaction that do not depend on ideal circumstances. Contributing to something greater than ourselves offers a form of meaning that transcends limited personal concerns. This can be through family, meaningful work, volunteering, activism, art, any activity where we feel we are making a positive difference in the world. The key is finding forms of contribution that align with our unique values and natural capacities. If these reflections have touched something you have been feeling, but perhaps have not found words to express, know that you are not alone. By subscribing to the channel, you will connect with a growing community of people who share your concerns and your desire for a deeper understanding of the existential challenges of our time. Each week, we meet here to explore together the big questions that define our era and to seek not just understanding, but also wiser ways to live amid the transformations we are witnessing. This is not just a channel, but a space for dialogue and collective growth. Join us on this continuous journey. Subscribe so we can continue this essential conversation about how to live with more wisdom and purpose in a world that often leaves us disoriented and divided. Finally, we need to remember that the search for happiness is inherently human and not something we should be ashamed of. The problem is not wanting to be happy. The problem is that we have been taught to seek happiness in places where it cannot be found. In infinite material accumulation, in constant external validation, in total control over uncontrollable circumstances, in competitive comparison with others, in impossible personal perfectibility. Real happiness is available right now, in this moment, not as a result of some future achievement, but as deep recognition that you already possess everything you need for a meaningful life. You have the capacity to love and be loved. You have the capacity to contribute to the well-being of others. You have the capacity to learn, grow, and create. You have the capacity to find beauty in the world around you and meaning in the experiences you are already having. The way forward is not more self-optimization. It is less comparison, less consumption, less rush, less perfectionism, less external seeking, and more presence, more connection, more acceptance, more gratitude, more contribution, more love. Happiness is not a destination to be reached through heroic effort. It is a natural capacity that emerges when we stop working against our own humanity and start working with it.
When the Industrial Revolution erupted, a lot of people said that the only way to build an industrial society is to build an empire. Why? Because you need to control the sources of raw materials and the markets of the industry. So any country that industrialized, first Britain, but also then France and Belgium and Germany and Japan, they all built empires because people thought this is the only way to build an industrial society, with terrible consequences for hundreds of millions of people, not just in India, but in many other parts of the world. Another experiment was totalitarian regimes, that people thought the only way to build an industrial society is to build a totalitarian regime like Nazi Germany or like the Soviet Union, because they thought the only way to control the immense power of industry is if the government controls everything, the economy, society, culture, totalitarianism. Now we know that these were mistakes, that there are better ways to build industrial societies.
What I try to do in all my works is help people understand themselves, help people understand reality better. It's a very delicate job because people usually rush to judge reality and to judge history, to judge the past and the present. We want to know who are the good guys and who are the bad guys, whether things are good or bad. When we rush to judge things, we don't have time to understand them. In my writing, I try to write history without villains, without good guys and bad guys, but to understand the deep process of change. And I sometimes think about history maybe as a kind of collective therapy.
It's a book about the long-term history of information networks, from the Stone Age to the age of AI.